Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this episode of the On the Mark Financial Forum and Podcast. Today's guest is Richard Wexler, who is someone who is devoted to education. His whole mission is driven by education, which I really appreciate because that's a big part of what we do as well. And Richard is part of an organization, one of the founders of A Plan to Age. So, Richard, thank you so much for joining us, and please tell the audience more about you.
Sure. Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. Long story made short, kind of unique background. 20 years ago, working in the software industry, minding my own business. I'm older. I was in my 50s at that point. Young kids, married later. Four parents between my wife and myself. And all of a sudden, in the summer of '05, we start getting phone calls. We thought they were doing well, and each one of them was pretty ill. So all of a sudden now we are providing care for all four of them. And that lasted 14 years until the final parent passed at 96 in 2019. So probably 6 months into that adventure, realized I could barely spell the word care. Left what I was doing in software, started my first company, Points of Life, started reading everything I could. Google was a lot different back then, and then eventually was asked to go out and start educating, which I did where I was in Northern California, and then eventually nationally, which led to my own podcast called Caring in America that we started 2 years ago. And then through the podcast, met my future business partner, Peter Ross, who's the co-founder and CEO of Senior Helpers. They're one of the largest in-home care companies in the country. And in January of this year, we launched A Plan to Age. And here we are.
Here we are, and tell us more about A Plan to Age, because I think it's got an amazing mission that I want people to know about.
Thank you. So, what I realized from my own personal experience and all the education and standing in front of the thousands of people that I've done, I'm going to say pretty broad number. Over 95% of the people in this country have never really had a comprehensive conversation within their own family. Mom has a serious fall, grandma gets really ill, something happens to dad, grandfather. What are they going to do? What is that going to look like? Peter and I talk about all the time. People on the West Coast will plan a comprehensive vacation to Hawaii. People on the East Coast will do the same thing for maybe the Bahamas. But we don't want to talk about this horrible subject called aging and care. And what we're really trying to get people to understand, unlike my wife and myself, it really is a lot easier when something happens to that older loved one. And unfortunately, at some point, it will. It's much easier to have a plan.
Yeah, and most people don't. That's
No.
when we get calls from families about loans, most of the time it's in some version of a panic state. Something just happened unexpectedly. I mean, no one really. We all expect it to happen, but we also don't expect it to happen. It's just not going to happen now. It's years down the way, so we don't have to do much. Uh, but yeah, planning ahead is something that we're huge proponents of, whether it be the financial side, the emotional side, all of it. Just trying to prepare yourself and have those conversations. So
Cool.
tell me more about, what does A Plan to Age do? What resources do you have for families, and how can you be of service?
So hopefully, Peter and I have spent over 40 years combined in this industry, and we realized we would love to just do a site, A Plan to Age, with the number two, aplantoage.org, that people can go to and just talk about planning. But we realized 10 years from now, it's going great. Most people will still deal with this in crisis. So we put together two parts of the website, the planning part and the crisis part. So wherever you are, you've just gotten that call or text from mom or a family member. Mom's in the ER. Something's probably broken. It's probably a hip. You had no plan. What's next? We have resources we're building daily to help people anywhere in the country find the appropriate resources that they need. From a planning perspective, we teach people to have what we call the family conversation. This conversation that most people don't have, whether it's that adult child up to mom and dad, or older mom and dad having that conversation with the adult child. We teach them what to talk about. And then we put together a care plan within the planning part of the site where they can actually, once they've had, and it's probably not one conversation, it's multiple conversations with mom, dad, grandparents, maybe close Uncle Charlie or Aunt Mary that you've been really close to since you were little. There's an actual document, a care plan they can fill out, they can download it, and then similar to an estate plan, as things change within the family structure, update it.
Yeah. And is this all nonprofit? Is there a fee to the families to do this? How does that work?
Thank you, Mark. So we're a nonprofit foundation. Families can come to the site free of charge. One thing that I've been working on for almost 20 years now is reaching out to employers. The sad part is most employers out there, where my employer was 20 years ago, really don't have resources, programs, education in place for their employees. And where are most adult children when this happens? They're trying to work. So an employer can use it. It's free of cost. All the information there they can consume. Obviously, if they hire one of our resources, they're going to need to compensate them. But all the material, all the information we're bringing, no charge.
Right, and usually that's the first step. I mean, of course, a vendor may have a fee associated with what they're gonna provide, but I think the first step that families need is, like, to know who even to call, what professionals may we need based on the circumstances and whatnot. Is there any option for people to call in, like, if they have questions or if they need more specific information that might be unique to their situation?
Yes, they can get a hold of us. There's an info email on there that actually comes directly to me. So if they have further questions, if they're not seeing a resource in their given city yet, which we're trying to build, that's going to take a bit of time. Reach out. We have so many connections in this industry around the country. We'll help them find whatever they need. I've told people, and I learned this the hard way. I tell people I was quote unquote special. I had all four parents. Most people may have the care for one parent. And when you haven't planned, it's really tough. But I do tell people if there's a plan, it'll be easier.
Yeah. Oh, for sure, and probably less expensive as well.
Very
Because
much so.
like, on the lending side where we're helping families figure out how to, potentially leverage their home to pay for the care,
Yep.
if you plan ahead of time, you're gonna have much better loan options than you will if you're dealing in a crisis, not because we're trying to take advantage, but because the physical and mental condition of the person applying for the loan could be vastly different, and that can impact what types of loans you may be eligible
Exactly.
for. Yeah, so planning.
You've hit on the number one issue. I talk about these little C words. First one is care, second one is cost. And probably the biggest issue that I've found over the years standing in front of people is when I start explaining cost. And people think I've been drinking something. They can't believe,
Drop.
yeah, that it's that expensive. Use the number if someone is looking for home care, a professional to come in the home. Because most people think when something happens and I live in Cincinnati and mom's still in the family home in Houston, we'll just bring someone in. And the average cost around the country is $40 an hour. In the bigger cities, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, New York, Chicago, that's approaching 50. So you can do the math when you figure out how many hours per day, per week, per month you're looking at if you're going to bring someone in the home. Or first they think, we'll move mom to an old person's home. Old person's
Mhm.
home don't exist. They're called assisted living or memory care. And for an
Right.
assisted living, average cost is about 5,000 a month. That's just to get the room, and then when you add care on top of that, that dollar amount goes up.
Well, fortunately, I've got a calculator right here, and I'm doing some math at 50. I'm in Los Angeles, so let's say $50 an hour. Even if you need someone half the day, right? 12 hours a day, that's $600 a day. If you multiply that over 365 days a year, it's $219,000 for 1 year.
Piece of cake. I mean, that's what I
Right.
try to tell people. It For many people, this may one parent, one loved one may be more expensive than the house they bought. And then what happens, and there are going to be more people than my wife and myself that wind up taking care of multiple loved ones. And when you're
Yeah.
talking numbers like that, what's the average person going to do?
What do you do? I mean, multiply that by 4, you're over $800,000 per year. And you
Yeah.
said you were in that situation to some degree for 14 years. I mean, it's just the math is
If you
astronomical.
go back to '04 and tell me, first of all, I'd be doing this all these years later, and we would have taken care of those parents for 20 years, I mean, 14 years, I don't think I would have believed you. But
Right.
I tell people, with medication, with medicine, we're living longer. I had a client in California 10 years ago, and he passed away. Are you sitting down? He passed away at 117. And he
Wow.
didn't start feeling badly until 115. So I look at people
Unreal.
and go, let's forget about that little word called care. Let's just talk about financing your life to well past 100. And that's happening for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely becoming more common for sure. People are aging longer and also,
Yeah.
like anything, gets more expensive over time, but the cost of
Yeah.
care has exploded. Home care, whatever it is, if you're in home, you're out of home, it doesn't matter. The costs have gone substantially higher. And obviously, they're somewhat regional, city by city. Bigger cities may have a little bit higher cost because of the cost of living, but no matter what numbers you're adding together, when you add that many numbers together, they add up to a big number. And it could be over the
Yeah.
course of several years. And what do you do? So what types of, like, how do people handle that? Like, when you're guiding a family or they're going through the care plan on your website, how do you help them navigate that piece of it?
So we're giving them all the information. We're telling them, first of all, what they need to be talking about with their family member that they've talked about a million things, but they haven't addressed aging and they haven't addressed care. The advice that we give people, especially that adult child that wants to talk to mom or dad, if you were to simply call mom or dad up and just go, "We gotta talk," you're probably not gonna get a really good reception. One of the first things we talk about, if you have brothers and sisters, talk to them first. First of all, you wanna figure out who's the best person to start this conversation with mom and dad. Is it the alpha dog in the family, the oldest? Maybe it's the youngest. Maybe that person had the closest relationship, let's say, with mom. And one of the things that we advise them is when you're talking to mom, you simply want some advice. You're calling her to get some advice. And what we've found out over the years, most parents don't turn down a child that's looking for advice. And one of those initial questions, "Mom, as you age, where do you wanna live? Do you wanna stay in the home? Are you open to moving somewhere?" And then the next question may be, "If something were to happen to you, God forbid, who do you want taking care of you?" And they're probably gonna say you,
Yeah,
or your brother,
that's
or
a,
your
a
sister.
tough question to ask because you might not like
Yeah.
the answer,
Yeah, and
but at
then
least you know where they stand.
the next step is figuring out how you provide that care, which can be really complex.
It can, because a lot of the adult children, if I'm putting myself in these shoes, fortunately, my parents are still healthy and doing well, but they've had some moments where it was, "Okay, we might need to think about what's yet to come." But I am the adult child, right? And I have my own kids and I live in a
Yeah,
different city than my family members. And I kind of fit all those challenging situations where it may not be feasible for me to be the primary caregiver. And my brother's same situation, has his own family and lives in a different state than my
yep,
parents. So these are real issues. And I think that's a more common theme nowadays and maybe it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, where families are now more spread out than they were previously, but it creates some significant challenges. And I think a lot of seniors would just like to be taken care of by their adult children or relatives. They don't really realize, as you age and you start to lose the ability to do certain basic daily functions, what that actually means. Like, do you want your
yeah,
adult child to be the one to help you go to the bathroom or do things that may be uncomfortable for you to
yeah,
have them helping you with? And I don't think people really think about those things. They just think, oh, I want a family member to care for me. But then when it comes to the reality of what that looks like as you get in your
yeah,
later years, it may not be something that they actually want. But you're right. You have to have those
yeah.
conversations.
You need to know, and exactly what you're talking about. Most adult children now have moved away from the city where they were raised, maybe because of someone they met, maybe it's because of a job, maybe it's because of both. And all of a sudden, that call or text or email comes. And like a lot of people, I've heard this so many times. Well, mom fell, she broke her hip. I'm going to fly out back to LA where I was raised. I'll be there for 3, 4, 5 days. Help mom. She'll be fine after that. And they don't realize she may people pass away from broken hips based on their age. A lot of people, this may take months and months to get back to where they were before the break. And so, what I'm about to make is a sexist comment, but it's true. Most of the caregivers are usually a female in the family. So, again, this female lives again, let's say Cincinnati, mom lives in LA. What is she gonna do when she realizes 3, 4, 5 days in LA won't do it? They can't afford to move mom. They can't afford to bring someone in the home. That's most people in this country. And how is that gonna affect her life with her husband, her life with her kids in Cincinnati, her job, which she may have to leave to go take care of mom?
Right. Yeah, there's big implications. And maybe this is why people don't want to plan ahead because they're fearful of
Right?
what the
Yeah.
answers might look like.
Yep. I
That's like
totally agree.
avoidance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, one of the fortunate silver linings is that as the cost of care has risen, so have property values. And so that's where we can
Cool.
come in to help people figure out how to navigate these significant costs. And people usually have retirement income, maybe social security, pension, maybe they've socked away some money, but in a lot of cases it's not enough to pay for care for as long as they may need it.
We lost you, Mark.
So we can help people pull the equity from their home to be able to pay for that care or to pay for the level of care that they ideally want, because there's usually a trade-off. If you're looking at a nicer community versus a not as nice community, obviously the nicer one's going to cost more. Or if you prefer to stay home, then you might have a situation where the cost of home care is more significant. um, but we coach people through trying to figure out how to navigate those costs and how to use the home in a way that allows people to have the care that they ideally want. And so there are some unique ways we can do that, some different programs and creative ways that we can navigate that for families. But it gets really complicated, and we're talking about potentially large numbers. So, and sometimes our products are also to help people avoid taxes and other things that are really impactful. And I think that's one of the things we talked about, planning ahead. There are situations where families are not planning ahead, not just from a financial perspective, but from a tax perspective, whether they should sell the home, That's always a big consideration. And sometimes families decide to sell the home without realizing that all that appreciation that they've had may, you may lose a big chunk of that to taxes. So, okay. And Richard, I know you've got a new initiative that you're putting together to try to raise awareness about this program and your organizations. Tell us a little bit about a little more.
Sure. So we came to realize that trying to get people to plan, we had to kind of start from square one, what I've been doing for 20 years, but on a much larger scale. Really try to educate people about what it means to age in this country, what it means to need care, whether you're that individual or you're the family around that individual. So on Tuesday, July 29th, at 1 p.m. Eastern, we are launching on Zoom our national conversation on aging, care, and a lot more. The first call is going to be introductory. We will probably have some senior care, elder care experts on that call as well. We are literally trying to educate America about this subject and educate them to a conversational level. So you run into a friend at church or the grocery store or work. I got a tough call from mom yesterday. She's not doing good. I don't know what to do. Well, do you mind if I give you a little information? And you provide the information about, these are what the options are if she's going to need care. This is what it actually costs. And then if you guys wind up doing it yourself, I can tell you a little bit about that as well. And then based on what they need, we now have an aging coach in just about everyone around this country, helping people understand these numbers are scary. We have the oldest baby boomers turning 80, and we have over 100 million people in this country over 50. So I keep saying to myself and saying to other people, how are we going to house and how are we going to care for over 100 million people that are 50 and older? We have to make some drastic changes. And one of the things we really need to do is educate people. There's actually an invitation to this on our website, a plan to age. That's the number two, a plan to age.org. You'll find it on our site. It's on Zoom, seating somewhat limited, so you need to RSVP. That's on the invitation. And we just really want to help people and help them understand that I wish I could say this would never happen in your life, but there's a pretty good chance it will.
Yeah. And probably more than once if you're fortunate enough to have more than one parent or loved one that's aging.
Exactly.
Well, that sounds like an amazing resource. If people can't catch the live version of that, will there be another way for them to watch it afterwards?
Yeah, we should record it so they have that as well. Again, and we're gonna do it quarter after quarter. So there'll be another one coming up this fall, another one after that. We're gonna have experts join us on those calls. Again, we wanna talk about a very broad spectrum of education. And why is it broad? Because when something happens to mom, dad, Uncle Charlie, whomever it may be, there's a lot of things they're going to need as they take this aging journey with care, and you're taking it with them.
Yeah, this is not a solo problem or challenge,
No,
to say the least.
no,
It takes a village, as they say.
it
Well,
really
that
does.
sounds like a great resource. I think, you guys are doing such great things to help families plan for these things. The fact that it's nonprofit and, you're coming from a place of service, which I always appreciate because that's how we approach things as well. And it does take a village to solve this problem, and there may not be a perfect solution no matter what you do, no matter how much you plan, but it'll be a lot better if you do, for sure. So, Richard, I want to thank you so much for joining us. You've mentioned the website. I know that's a great place for people to connect with the organization, and potentially if they send an email inquiry, they might get you personally. But if there's anything else you want to leave the audience with, now's your chance, and if not, we'll wrap up today's conversation.
Well, first of all, thank you, Mark, and I appreciate all you're doing and all you're doing from a financial aspect to help people. We do have a podcast of our own. It's called Caring in America. That podcast has experts on it to bring that level of education as well. You can find that wherever you get a podcast. So, folks, check that out. Check out A Plan to Age. And I really, really encourage people have that conversation, whether you're the older loved one with your adult children or you're the adult children. First, have it with your brothers and sisters, like I talked about. Figure out who's going to place that call to mom or dad, and then have it with them. You're going to feel a lot better knowing you've discussed this and you have a roadmap of what's going to happen if something happens.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you can't plan enough because no matter how
Yep.
much you plan, it might be a little bit different than what you expect, but at least
Yep.
you'll be on the right path. So, Richard, thank you so much. Definitely encourage people to check out the website, to check out the podcast, and to engage with Richard's organization as much as
Thank
you
you.
can because it's definitely going to help you.
Thank you,
So,
Mark.
thank you all for joining. Of course, my pleasure. Thank you. And thank you to the audience for joining our session today of On the Mark. And we hope to see you next time.
Good.
Take care.